In this fourth challenge, you're going to be working with internal company data. We have a finance report for projects coming from SAP. In this case, every few months you get a new file downloaded to a central location, and your transformation is going to pick up that folder of files and consolidate them into one simple summary. You'll find the folder with the relevant files available for download below this video. Now, specifically, the project manager here just wants to see a very simple summary of invoices on their projects. This is the format of the data that you're going to find in each of the files. There's a lot of information here, and very little of it is relevant to the report we want to produce. In particular, the project manager is interested in this 3-letter project code that appears within the job code column, so you're going to have to find ways to extract that. The final output should summarize invoices only, aggregated by fiscal year, and as you can see in the output at the bottom, you should be summarizing one column for each project. Have a go yourself, and then we'll take a look at a possible solution. Let's take a look at the Power Query solution to create this output from our SAP project data. So as I mentioned, we're consolidating similar files from a folder. So the new source I used to collect this data was the new source file and then folder. I pointed it at my downloaded folder and then chose the combine and transform option to combine the data, but also to give me the chance to transform each individual file before they're brought together. Remember, when we're pulling similar files from a folder like this, Power Query creates these helper items that are going to help us through part of this process. The two most important ones are this one query which sits outside of the helper queries, and this query is really the final one which brings all those consolidated files together. In this case, I've actually made no changes to this part of the query. All of the changes I want to apply are at the individual file level before they are merged. So to do that, I can apply my steps in the transform sample file section. So in there, the default starting point would have been here, where we're presented with the starting point of our data. We can promote those headers, and the first thing I did was to filter the rows to remove these null rows at the bottom, which represent some sort of totals across the data. Now, initially I filtered this based on document date is not null. But thinking about this a bit more, perhaps a better way to have done that would be to pick document type is blank, perhaps. I can imagine there being scenarios where a document had a number, but it perhaps didn't have a date just yet. This is where it would help if we could have some of that database documentation to understand which data points are required in the data entry, so we can understand which of these conditions is going to help future-proof our query. But anyway, for now, I've chosen document date is not null. I've removed a few columns that I didn't need, leaving me simply with the document type, amount, fiscal year, and the long version of the job code. We filtered the rows to include only invoices. If you looked carefully, you'll have noticed that one of the files included invoices, but the other file included both invoices and another type of document. We no longer need that document type column, so that we can remove it. And now I want to get the 3-letter project code from the job code. The first thing I did was to extract the last 6 characters from the job code, and then I was free to extract the first 3 from that. Now that I have the job codes, I can remove all the blank ones, which means I only need now to pivot that job code column so that it appears along the top. That gives me a fiscal year summary for the one file that I'm looking at in this sample. And that means that when I consolidate this same process for all of the files in my folder and look at the combined version here, I get the same line, but for each file. When you're combining files from a folder like this, it's important to understand the difference between the two major queries here. One helps you transform each individual file before they come together, and the other helps you transform the overall consolidated data. Our Power Query Fundamentals course covers this in a bit more detail if you're interested to take a look.